a battery connected, and as she spins the DreamCast logo will come up. I haven't connected the audio yet. As you see, it's all running very happily. A good old 7 volts, nice little orange light there. Back to the screen again. It's just I'm going through the wonderful little menus. Take a few more seconds. There we are. Spy. The superpad for the N64 is actually in principle exactly the same joystick as it is for the micropad, but for whatever reason moving left seems to move a bit slower than it does moving right. With this one it seems to be even, which of course is exactly what you want. Moving on to the system, to give you some form of comparison, if you're using the official DreamCast controller, it does move quite quickly. It's quite easy there to move off centre and to then have to get yourself back, which is fine, but if you've got someone running after you with a shotgun, you don't really want to be faffing about with deciding where you are at that point of time. The N64 controller, basically the stick is a lot bigger, it's also a bit wider, so it's easier to rest on your finger and to operate it more like you would do with a mouse. It's obviously not the same, but it is quite easy to use and it's got more control. It also seems to move very slightly slower than it does for the official Dreamcast, which is a bit strange, but again it seems to work very well. Consequently, that's the control I'm going to use as a main joystick. I've got the joystick in place now. Moving across are the 4 buttons, which as you see press very easily, nice mushy feel, and that is due to the rubber backed tact switches, which actually are really very handy. The buttons are stopped from rotating because of little grooves inside the buttonholes, and as you see there's no movement when I press the tact switches, which of course has been secured in place by a bit of hot glue. One speaker's in place already, the other one I just need to secure. This will be the start button, the 2 volume and the 2 contrast buttons, and of course the old D-pad. This was the N64 superpad joystick. It only needs to be secured in the 4 corners by a bit of hot glue, which is very very handy, and as you see it's right up against the edge as it is on the side here with the VMU, about as snug as it can be. Just to pan out very very slightly, one of the things about this is I've made the case literally about as small as it can get in order to use the setup I've got. Putting in a spare board I've got, as you see it will fit, although I just need to take the smallest of the corner off, which is grounding, so that doesn't really matter. This is also achievable because the part that connects the CD unit to the motherboard is all wired up, so I can move that unit backwards or forwards as required. I've put in a small fan to extract the air out from the top of the Dreamcast. This is the on-off button. It's actually from the Dreamcast itself. I've used it because it's designed to take up to 3 amps, and considering the system including the screen will be about 2.7 amps, it seemed a sensible choice. There's 2 double throw double pole switches here, which will alternate between the screen functions and the volume, or for the alternating D-pad for keyboard. That's what it looks like so far from the top. Ignore that part sticking out, that will be encased within the top of the case. These are the shoulder buttons, analog. As you see, nice free easy movement. Working down, there's the headphone jack, the green one, and the recharge one for recharging the batteries when I put them in the system. This is what the back of the case looks like, and as you see there's the button I've incorporated into that hole before, which pops the disc out. There's the rumble motor of course, and there's a light. Rather than using a standard size LED, this is actually a small spare part that I found from an old unit. It's a very very flat LED, which doesn't interfere with the movement of the joystick, which of course is quite critical. This is only a small test, so I've therefore connected a 3-volt battery to a couple of basic switches just so I can demonstrate that this concept works okay. There's the light, which I'll turn over in just a sec. As mentioned, every time the rumble comes on, that light will show. And there's the rumble. You can hear it working, you can see a slight judder. There's actually a very good judder there, and it moves very freely inside the case. Very snug, as you see, but it works unhindered. Of course, there's the two working together. Turn the system across and you can see the benefit of the joystick light. I'm just going to close the curtain very quickly, and turning it on, the light clearly comes on. So every time the rumble function comes along, you get the light and you get the movement of the motor. One thing that's important to remember when doing these sorts of projects is to make sure that you've got enough wire so that you can easily disassemble the unit to make any repairs. If you try and make things too tight, it's going to be very difficult later on in order to do any form of dismantling. Here, for example, everything is wired so that that will go across. Conversely, if any repairs are required, that can easily be removed, put over here, access to the main screen board and everything else for that matter. This was the one from the original DreamCast. I had heard that if the wire is extended, it will adjust the frequency and stop the system from booting, so I haven't made it any longer. It's given a slight problem because ideally I wanted the fan on the other side, so instead it's an extra fan to blow some air downwards to the next board and across the drive board. The next fan is the air intake one, a little one here, which puts the air across the 7805 and over the case. Fan 3 is this one here, which was put in some time ago, which of course keeps the two main processors cool, and it also is next to the air intake, which is down here. And the last fan is the exhaust fan to pull the air out from the system upwards through the case. So in other words, airflow through here, up through there, and out of the system. Over here is a Texas Instruments card which outputs the 3.3 volts. I've made sure that none of the wires interfere with the fan. Okay, this is the first time that I've turned the system on in its final format, connected to the batteries, and hopefully everything will go okay. Let's turn it on, see what happens. Fingers crossed. Ah, great. Fan's working, that one's working, main one's working, and the little one's working. The sound you heard just now is a start-up. I can't turn the system over for showing the video, otherwise the unit might detach, but hey, it works. Increase the brightness. Seems to need it.